natural act of imperfect act. And in fact, is it really, really such a crime? In events such as these, when our answers proceeded to riddle, 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 riddle in a rhyme. It's a riddle in a rhyme. All through the obstacles around, it's truly only freedom that surrounds. With every breath, a living voice. With every rest, yes, there is a choice. And to see what you want to see, for it to be there must surely be mountains to climb, cliffs to scale, bridges to build, and we will persevere. And we will persevere. And we will persevere. Of imperfect act, and in fact, is it really, really such a crime? In events such as these, when our answers proceeded to riddle, 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 riddle in a rhyme. It's a riddle in a rhyme. It's a riddle in a, it's a riddle in a. It's a riddle in a, 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 it's a riddle in a rhyme.
Hey guys, Dave Darren here. It's good to see a couple people join. Not many, but tonight's show is going to be too different in a couple of different aspects. Number one is the show right now is not getting many views, but at the end of this show, I think this is an important enough topic that I am going to spend money and boost the show. I'm going to put it on, right now it's running on YouTube. I am going to rerun it on Facebook Live, and then I'm actually going to boost it on Facebook to get more people to view it, and then I am going to post it on some of the sites that are for like gun control and gun rights, because I think this is going to be an interesting show tonight. And by the way, I think this is going to be a show where most people are not going to agree with me. And it's because I don't chicken out about talking about any topic at all, including topics that I won't be the most popular guy on the planet to talk about. So let's see, a couple people are joining here. Let's see if I have anyone to say hello to. No one's commenting yet, so I'll just say hello to the people that are joining. And as you guys join, let me say again that tonight is going to be a show that is, right now it's getting some viewers. Typically my show doesn't get a lot of views, but I'm going to wrap it up, crank it up tonight. In other words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take tonight's show, which is running right now on YouTube, and I'm going to run it again on Facebook Live, probably about an hour and a half, or maybe I'll run it tomorrow. I'll put a one-day delay in it because I don't want to run it too late. I want to run it sort of in prime time. So I'm going to rerun it on Facebook, and then I am actually going to spend some money and boost it, and I'm actually going to post it on some of the other sites because I think this is an important enough topic to talk about. And I know it's a topic that's not going to make me popular. In fact, some people dropped off already. Maybe they read the topic and they decided, you know what, Dave, screw you because we're all for gun ownership. So let me talk about this. Now, before I start on this topic of gun rights versus, what did I call this? I titled it Gun Control versus gun neglect. That's going to be the majority of tonight's show. But let me bring up one other topic before we start, okay? I read this actually on Fox News, I think it was. Let me bring it up so I can read it to you guys. It was on Fox News earlier today, about 2 hours ago. By the way, Rick Kasich died, the lead singer of the Cars. If you didn't hear that already, you heard it on the Dave Darren Show. And I can't remember so many songs of that band, but I think I remember one, All I Want Is You or something like that. I thought it was a great video on MTV when MTV was actually music TV. But on Fox News today, now by the way, before I read this, let me ask you guys, how many of you people work really, really hard for your money? Remember that song by Donna Summer? How many people work so hard for their cash? I do. How many people look at their paycheck and they see how much tax is taken out? I look at it and I see that and I'm disgusted. I'm raising my hand. How many of you guys are frustrated when people take advantage and they make money that they're not entitled to because they haven't worked hard for it, whether they get it from some other strange means or whatever the cause is, they get it and you're frustrated with them? How many of you are frustrated because you bust your ass and you see some people out there that don't bust their ass and they either luck into money or they get it some way under the table or whatever the case is? I'm guilty of that as well. So here's an article. Let me read this to you. It was on Fox News, as I said earlier. A student athlete who vaped, V-A-P-E-D, you know what vaping is, right? Vaped for 18 months is suing e-cigarette manufacturer Juul after doctors said he now has lungs similar to those of a 70-year-old man. I think after that they should have said, but he has the brain capability and the mentality of a 2-year-old. Now, how could I possibly say that? Here's how I can possibly say that, is because, you know, I was a kid at one point. Peer pressure has always existed. To look cool, what did you do? You smoked, right? I never smoked because I thought, you know what? I don't need to look cool by smoking. I'm going to look cool by being a jock and being an athlete in school. And that was my poison of being physically fit and an athlete and an athletic person. I didn't need the popularity to be a cigarette smoker. And I didn't need a lot of brain capability to realize that cigarette smoke is dangerous. Why would you possibly, and I'm going to create a lot of enemies here because I'm sure some people listening to this show smoke. And they think that they're not responsible for the consequences, but the cigarette manufacturer is. And they're not responsible at all because they bought cigarettes thinking that they were going to just breathe and smoke for the rest of their lives and have no consequence. And then finally, when they found out that there are consequences and that cigarette companies were not transparent as to what the consequences should be, you hold the cigarette companies responsible, but you don't hold yourself responsible at all. In other words, tonight's show is going to be about personal responsibility, which I call now, currently in 2019, personal neglect and delegated responsibility. No one is responsible for anything that they do anymore. The consequences are not because of what they did. The consequences because of something someone else did, and they're a victim of that consequence that occurred, all right? Now, here's what I'm going to talk about, cigarettes. Like I said, I was a kid. I could have succumbed to peer pressure and looked like the cool guy smoking a cigarette, but I decided not to. I was the jock guy, right? And to me, I didn't even need my parents to tell me it was dangerous. Of course, parents would tell you that. I don't know if the parents smoked. I don't know how transparent the parents would be to tell their kid it's dangerous when they're lighting up in the house. I have no idea how those parents were, but I didn't even need to be told that cigarette smoke is dangerous. Why would you put any smoke into your body, with maybe the exception of taking a shower and having the hot sauna, the hot steam that you're breathing in, the liquids, the gaseous steam, the vapor from the condensation, all that. That's the only thing I can deem is safe to put in your body that is of a smoke appearance. Breathing in smoke from a cigarette seems to just have been a stupid thing to do. I knew that at a young age. I didn't even need my parents to tell me. Breathing in smoke, if you're going to do that, why not, isn't it as safe to just stay in the back of a car and breathing the smoke that's coming out of the exhaust? Why would you think cigarette smoke is safer than breathing in exhaust from a car? So again, I'll read this article, which is a frustrating thing, and it pisses me off that a lot of people really bust their asses to make their money. Make their wages. They got to go, if you're a consultant, you got to go job to job when the consulting gigs ends. And I say that because I see John that joined, I see Asuka that joined, I see Richard that joined. Richard's at the Red Lobster right now. Pray for their shrimp. I don't know what that means, but cigarettes are dangerous. Okay, Asuka, we know that now. We know that why? Because of the people that have died, the cigarette labels. But how about at the time when I was a kid? I'm 61 years old. When I was a kid of 10 years old, 8 years old in school, where some kids are smoking already. At 8 years old, they had access to cigarettes, they're smoking them. And did we know it was dangerous then? You know what? We should have. It's a stupid thing, even at 8 years old, to be thinking, okay, you're breathing cigarette smoke, you're breathing in smoke into your body. Smoke. Would a kid at 8 years old stand in back of a Volkswagen Beetle in the 70s and 60s that's smoking? Would they think that that's safe? Of course not. Even a stupid kid at 8 years old would realize that's not safe, yet you're breathing in cigarette smoke. Do you need to be educated at any degree to realize that's dangerous? Did you need your parents to tell you? Did you need a teacher to tell you? Did you need anyone to educate you in that stupid concept where that is dangerous? Did we really need that? So I started this off by saying, I said this was going to be a short topic. It is. I want to get to the other one about gun control and gun neglect in a second, but I read this earlier and it pissed me off because we work hard. I said earlier when I opened the show, how many people say they work extremely hard for their money? Extremely hard. It's insane how hard they work to get to the level of success they're at, to pay their mortgage, to pay their children's college education. And then you get people like this, friggin' boneheads, I was going to say the other word. And you got this guy here, it's on Fox News, a student, athlete, who vaped, V-A-P-E-D, that's smoking, that's the e-cigarettes, all right? For 18 months is suing e-cigarette manufacturer Julo after doctors said he now has the lungs of someone that's about 80 years old. And I said he has probably the brain capability of a 2-year-old. He's an idiot. And I'll tell you why. This guy who's 18 years old, of course, what's he do? What is his main thing that he does every single day? He's online, right? He's online all of the time. Did he ever, I'm going to drag this over, did he ever go on and research this? Contents of vape smoke. I've got this up right now, you can read it. E-cigarettes create vapor made of fine and ultrafine particles of particle matter, which have been found to contain propylene glycol, whatever that is, glycerin. When I think of glycerin, I think of nitroglycerin that blows crap up. Nicotine, we know nicotine is an addictive chemical. Flavors, tiny amounts of toxins. Carcinogens. What is a carcinogen? I'll stop on that one. What is that? I Wikipedia'd it. And here, carcinogen is a substance or radiation that promotes carcinogens, whatever that is, the formation of cancer. This may be due to the ability to damage the genome or the disruption of cellular metabolic process. So it's a carcinogen is the formation of cancer, all right? So when you read that, when the 18-year-old kid who's on the internet all of the time on social media, who should have been realizing he should have read up on what's in e-cigarettes, then he would read this shit. Heavy metals, metal nanoparticles, and other substances. What are the other substances? How bad are they for you? You know what? If you took, to look cool, smoking e-cigarettes. Now everyone thinks, okay, so I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. They're dangerous. So then e-cigarettes come up and they think, oh, great. E-cigarettes, no danger whatsoever. No danger. I'm going to smoke e-cigarettes because I can continue to look cool smoking an e-cigarette, and there's no danger. Did you ever read up on what's in e-cigarettes? And why would you be a guy that's 18 years old who's on the internet all of the time? Because everyone that's 18 years old is on social media, the internet 24 hours a day. Why would you not read what you're putting into your body? And then you're going to sue the e-cigarette companies. You know what? E-cigarette companies are responsible because they're selling the product. Tobacco companies were responsible for creating the cigarettes because they did it, they created it. But you know what? How about the individual responsibility that you had not to smoke cigarettes or to realize that breathing in smoke is dangerous? And then when e-cigarettes come out, you think it's safe now. It's great. I can smoke, look cool, and I'm no danger to my body at all. Don't you guys realize that the chemicals in that e-cigarette, unless it's water vapor that you're breathing in from condensation from the water heating up, other than that, what's in it? Read it, and you read it and you see what's in it, and then you're going to sue the e-cigarette companies. When in all reality, yes, it's their fault, but it's also your fault. And the reason I say that too is think about the economy crash when homes were foreclosed by the bucket loads, right? You know, people went to the banks, and the banks told them that they could afford the house. They could afford their over their means living capabilities. They were convinced that they could live way over their means. I had a friend, actually it was my wife's friend, who we were living in a townhouse in Wilmington, Delaware, below our means. And someone that we know, my wife's friend, bought way above their means. And they're criticizing us. We found out from my wife's other friends that they said, oh, Dave and Kiko live in a townhouse in Pike Creek, Delaware. Great place to live, by the way, on a golf course. But it was a townhouse. It was below our means. But we lived there so that we could accumulate wealth and go to our next step in life. Where they just decided to bypass that work ethic and just go and live in a house they couldn't afford. And you know what happened? They lost their home in foreclosure. And you know what happened to us? We moved to our next house, which is 3,200 square feet, which we can now afford. Back then we couldn't afford it, but we could have been convinced by the banks that we could have afforded it at a much earlier time. But we decided logically in our heads that we couldn't afford it. So we didn't jump the gun and go to that realm of living beyond our means, yet my wife's friend did. And if it was my friend, I would have told them they were dickheads for doing that because they were stupidly motivated and told by someone else without their own personal responsibility to look into their own financial background to figure out they couldn't pull it off. So they were idiots. So like I'm saying, these people with the e-cigarettes, the e-cigarette companies are guilty as well for producing the product that's endangering the health of people, creating the product that they're creating. But on the other hand, it's also actually more responsible on the individual who's stupid enough to buy the product. So what is it, like a 60-40? I think it's more guilty for the consumer who was an idiot, especially because cigarettes were well known at that point to be dangerous. And there's a label on a cigarette. We don't need a label on a cigarette pack to realize it's dangerous. We don't need all these warning labels. Use your friggin' brains. Don't we have brains anymore? Don't we have brains in our heads, or are all the brain cells now evaporating? I don't understand that. I don't understand the stupidity of people where they need to be told every single thing that they think they need to be told. And if they're not told, what do? They go and they sue the person that didn't tell them. When they could have used their brains and realized that, why risk my health? And the advantage of risking my health is I can have a lawsuit. But then I'm going to be dead after I collect all the money because I was a stupid idiot for doing that. This boggles my mind how people are manipulated into stupidity. Maybe it's at the educational level where we trust the government to take care of us, and we decide not to use our brains, and we delegate our responsibility to someone else and say it's their fault for feeding us. It's their fault for our neglect. I hate that. Is this a ranting show? You know what? You can call in if you want. 609-467-4000. Switching topics now, all right? I'm going to now switch topics. That was my shorter topic, which took 15 minutes. All right, so now let's jump to the next topic. This is about gun control and what did I title it? Gun control, gun neglect. Big topic, right? Everyone's on this topic. Everyone in the United States, by the way, wants to own a gun. Fifth Amendment, right to carry, right? We all want to have guns. Now, let me tell you something about gun neglect, all right? Gun control versus gun, but maybe it's more accurate to say gun ownership versus gun neglect. Okay, so today I've got this. I bought this product called Ring. Here, I'll hold it up. I don't own stock in this company, so don't worry about it. It's called Ring. And you see here, there's a motion sensor here, and there you can, on the side, because it's called spotlight camera, there's spotlights on here that you can turn on either via motion, or you can turn them on dynamically. When you want the lights to come on, you can turn them on. And it's all, then you can see here, there's a phone app, so you can see what's going on in your spotlight camera. So if there's someone that breaks into your house, or if you got to mount it outside because this is an indoor-outdoor type of camera, you can mount it outside. As soon as someone walks close to your car, is trying to rip off your car, the motion sensor will detect them, the spotlights will turn on if you have it set up that way, and the broadcast will come to your cell phone. So you'll see everything that's going on. Then if you want to, you can call up the police or whatever you want to do. If you're in the house, then obviously you can carry your gun outside and shoot the guy, although you probably want to drag his body in the house before you shoot him, right? But the other thing that this Ring device has as well is a social media type of app. Now, it's social media connected to the people that own the Ring device. So it's not something that's on Facebook, although you can put the material on Facebook if you chose to do so. But you get on the Ring app, and you can see what's going on in the neighborhood. The people that are having these Ring devices and can record the video, you can actually record the video too. So someone who was ripping off your car, you'd actually have the video of the guy's face that was ripping off your car, and it's on your phone. You can replay it for the police or whatever the case may be, but it's got video capabilities that have recording capabilities as well as you seeing it done live, all right? So my point is that it's got a social media app connected to the people that want to talk about what's happened to them on the Ring community, the people that own the Ring device. What they do is they have it broken into neighborhoods, of whether it be a 3-mile perimeter or whatever. If you post something like your house was broken into, here's a video of the guy that broke into our house. You can see his face. He was trying to work the lock. He was able to get in because he fudged the lock, and he's in our house. Here's the video of the guy, and they can share that on the Ring community within, I think it's a 3-mile perimeter. So if you live in that 3-mile, it doesn't broadcast the whole country, because the whole country is not going to be exposed to that crime that was committed in a local 3-mile area. So it's focused on 3 miles. I believe it's 3 miles. So you have people in there that are putting like car thefts, suspicious people, cats in a tree actually was one guy. You had someone else that had an old Infiniti car, and the license plate, someone in the neighborhood saw the license plate flipped up so you couldn't see the number. And he reported him as a suspicious activity. That's a little bit of paranoia. In fact, I got on there and I said it was that James Bond no longer can afford the Aston Martin, so now he's got a cheap Infiniti, but the license plate flips up. And then I also said, someone that could be trying to avoid photo radar that now has either purchased that or made his own device, so the license plate flips up. So I'm going off topic here. So what happened is someone on the Ring community, on the social media, actually posted something. Now, what did he post here? So, okay, so he posted, actually what happened is, I think that his neighbor did not have the Ring device, did not have the video capabilities of the Ring device, but his neighbor, he probably knew his neighbor and he has the Ring device. And he probably was talking about that to him. And he asked his neighbor, he said, you know what, my house was robbed, so can you post on the Ring community that my house was robbed? And you know what his house was robbed of? It wasn't robbed of one, because if someone is robbed of one, say you're robbed one set of eyeglasses, you're going to say, my house was robbed and someone took a set of eyeglasses. Or if 2 eyeglasses were stolen, they would say a couple. 2 is a couple. You're married, husband or wife, it's a couple. They would say a couple glasses were stolen. Or a few. A few is 3. I always think of a few as 3. A few of my eyeglasses were stolen. If you say multiple, to me that means more than 3. Multiple means multiple. You got multiple things in your house all over. Multiple. It's either a couple, a few, or multiple. This guy's house was stolen. In his house, multiple guns were stolen out of his house. Multiple guns. To me, that means more than 1, means more than 2, more than a few, which is 3. Multiple means more than 3 in my understanding of the English language, or my interpretation of the English language. Multiple guns were stolen out of his house. I got on the app. I got on here and said, you know what? The guy whose guns were stolen, you know what? He's somewhat responsible as well. And you should see all the hostility I get, because now everyone in the United States, as soon as you bring up anything about someone being guilty for their possession of guns. That's what they determined. They determined that my saying that the guy who had his gun stolen was partially responsible. He wasn't necessarily 100% a victim. He was also irresponsible. And you should see the hate I got in this app. You should see the amount of hate. I got someone saying that, Dave, if your car's stolen, and let me step back a bit. I said that the people that stole the guns from this guy's house, they're being sold. They're going to be used in multiple ways. Either the guy that broke in and stole the multiple guns is going to use the multiple guns on his own and commit crimes. He already committed one crime. He robbed the house, right? So he committed one crime. What's stopping him from using those guns, multiple guns, to commit further crimes, to potentially harm or kill someone, right? Or he's going to get those multiple guns and he's going to sell them to people that can't get guns legally. Why? Because they can't get guns legally for a reason. They probably have committed a crime. So they can't buy a gun legally, so they're going to buy it on the black market from guys like this who stole multiple guns from one of my neighbors. This is in a 3-mile radius of where I live, remember. So now these guns are out on the street selling to people or being used by that guy to commit further crimes. And I said that that guy that claims he's a victim because his house was robbed, he's also guilty. And how could I possibly say that? How could I possibly say that? I'm going to get back to that in a second. Because one of the guys that was combating me on this topic said, so Dave, anyone that steals a car, say someone steals my car, and then that car is used, suppose that stolen car gets in an accident and kills 5 people. You know, he's trying to get away from the car being stolen. The police are chasing him, and he actually runs over a crowd of people and kills 5 of them. So does that mean that the car that was stolen from Dave, because the car was used in not only a theft, but also used in 5 murders, does that mean that Dave is also responsible for those 5 people being killed? That is very different. And that's from this perspective. So say someone steals my car. For the most part, it's going to be put in a chop shop, probably. The parts from that car are going to be distributed to people who probably are going to pick the parts up in sort of a black market. They're not going to go to Pep Boys and buy the product. Maybe they're going to go on Craigslist and see that there's a transmission for a 2008 Hummer H2 or something like that. And they know it's usually about $3,000. And they say it on Craigslist for like $500. On their mind, they're going to realize this isn't ridiculously cheap. I wonder why. And then if they're smart people, they're going to think, well, it's probably a hot item. It was probably stolen, but it's $500. I'm going to go buy it. Now, in all reality, what's going to happen is that transmission is going to be put into his Hummer, and that Hummer is not going to be used in a crime. The intention of purchasing that product was to get his Hummer working again. It was not to get the Hummer working again and to go rob the neighborhood bank and kill people and all that. So the crime of stealing the car is very different than the crime of stealing guns out of the guy's property. So now the reason so I said that the guy whose property was stolen was victimized. He's also somewhat guilty of having the gun stolen out of his home. Now, how could I possibly say that? What realm of logic do I have for saying that? And everyone's targeting me here and saying, Dave, you are a total and complete douchebag for saying that. The guy's a victim, and now you're making that victim that had his house robbed into someone now who's also guilty because he had his gun stolen. How could you possibly say that? And I know some of you guys are going to think that right now. Here's why I can say that. Number one, it's 2019, right? I just put up this product called the Ring device, right? And he's got his neighbor putting out this alert on social media, on Ring social media, asking if anyone in the neighborhood has video surveillance of the neighborhood to see if they could try to get a picture or a license plate of the guy that broke into his home and share with the police department, right? But now the guy who's owning multiple guns, not one, not a couple, not a few, multiple guns. That means to me 4 or more guns. Don't you think he can afford? This product is actually about $150 for one of them. You can buy other products. I actually have 2 of these, and I have 4 of this other product called Tend, T-E-N-D, and they're only $70 a camera. So you can, if you have a gun rack and you've got multiple guns in your gun rack, You know, everyone uses this defense that they've got guns because not only does it protect them, it also protects if you go into a coffee shop and the coffee shop's getting robbed and there's a bunch of people having coffee and nobody's got a gun, but one of the customers has a gun. He's going to be the one that's going to protect the people in the coffee shop by being the only person who can defend himself and everyone around him because he is armed. He is armed and the criminal that's robbing the place is armed. So there's a balance there of a good guy and a bad guy having a shootout in a coffee shop. So there's the guy that has a gun who wants to say, I have the right to carry arms. I like the Fifth Amendment. I buy a gun to take into a coffee shop, not only to protect me, but to protect the other patrons in the coffee shop. But when you own multiple guns in your home and you don't secure your home properly of those guns being protected from theft, then you know what? You're not protecting your home. You're not protecting you, your wife, and your children. And you're sure as hell not protecting the area of 3 miles around Gilbert because there's now multiple guns on the street being sold to who knows who has no ability to get a legal license to track the ownership and possession of that gun. So you've opened up your home to be a free distribution of stolen guns for anyone that broke in to steal your guns. So that's what I say. If you have multiple guns in your home, multiple guns, then you got to have the responsibility for the security of those multiple guns. And there's multiple ways of doing it. I said one way is the security camera. Now the security camera is not the catch-all because anyone that breaks into your home is probably in all reality going to wear a mask, right? So the video surveillance is probably not going to help to identify. You may be able to say, well, he was about 240 pounds. He had a mask on, but his hair was longer and hung down out of the mask. He seemed to be walking with a little bit of a hunchback. So I'm assuming he's like a guy that's a little bit older, but you can't know that. You can say, oh, he had on these jeans with on the bottom, they were worn out a bit. He had Nike white shoes on, so you can maybe identify him that way, but you wouldn't get a clear picture of his face. But here's another thing that the gun owners need to do, especially when you've got multiple guns and a house can be broken into at any point. No matter where you live, it can be broken into. Another thing you should do is, my father worked for, not any longer. He worked for Valley Forge Convention Center in Pennsylvania. And he actually worked a lot of the gun shows. The gun shows also have bolts. And they're not as secure as Fort Knox. Although I don't have any idea how safe Fort Knox is, for instance. But they're bolts. You go to hotels, some of the better hotels, and they got bolts in the wall where you put your own combination in there, put your wife's jewelry in there. And you trust that it's secure to some degree. You didn't engineer it, you didn't install the bolts, so you have no idea if it can be ripped out of the wall easily or crowbarred open. So you're kind of trusting that the hotel has some degree of security. Or you take your own personal responsibility by telling your wife, don't bring the real jewelry, bring custom jewelry so you don't have to worry about it at all. And in your home, you got a great bolt to protect. I'm going to take calls, but not right now, okay? So hang on a bit. So my point is, if you have these guns and you've spent a significant amount of money on multiple guns, then isn't it also your responsibility to spend an adequate amount of money to secure the guns in a bolt that cannot be crowbarred open? And I've seen these. Well, I've been to my father's events, the gun shows in Valley Forge Convention Center. And I see that these bolts are tamper-proof. You can't go in there with a crowbar and crowbar them open. You can't smash glass and pull the guns out of a glass type of rack. If you have multiple guns and when your house is robbed, the most secure thing in your home, even more than your wife's valuable diamond rings and jewelry, should be the guns to protect the safety of your home and the homes around you in the 3-mile community, or actually the whole country. You ship guns all over the place. Isn't that your main focus of protection? How could you be that selfish where you've got guns in your home and you don't care if your home gets ripped? Of course you care that your home was robbed, and then you're crying that your guns are stolen. Your guns were stolen because they were stolen because you didn't provide adequate security to keep your guns secure so that everything in your home is stolen. The rings are stolen, your jewelry stolen, money stolen out of your wallet because you left it there. You got electronic appliances stolen, your TV was stolen, your computer was stolen. The one thing that should not have been stolen is your guns. That is the only thing in your house that should not have been stolen is your guns. To have multiple guns stolen out of your home, to me, is inadequate security and neglect. So should there be a penalty for that guy? I think there should be. If you think about it, if you have a child and your child dies because of prescription drugs, being in a place vulnerable for the child to get into, what's the least is going to happen? There's going to be an investigation as how the child died. And then when they find out it's because your neglect for having open pharmaceuticals available for the child to take as a poison and he's dead, it's going to be a consequence. There is going to be a consequence. And the consequence is deserving because of your neglect. When guns are stolen out of your house and used potentially in a crime, a rape, a murder, even someone that is hurt and maybe spinal injury because your gun is out there used in a crime, are you responsible to some degree? Absolutely you are. There should be a consequence. What should the consequence be? One of them I feel like is you should not be able to have guns for a while because you didn't know the proper possession and security of those guns when they were in your possession and now out of your possession in the home of a criminal and whoever the criminal sells the guns to. Other criminals. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. And I'm getting all these hostilities from people saying, how dare you say that guy that's house was broken into is partially responsible? How dare you, Dave, say that? Because this is a very opinionated topic. Another thing to consider, when people break into a home, it's very different than people breaking into a bank. Now, it's different than people going into a bank with a gun and going up to the teller and say, give me everything that's in your register, and you're going to walk out with $1,000. That's a petty crime in a huge bank that's got a lot of money. You see all these movies all the time where they case the joint. They try to figure out who they can use internal to get into to rob the bank from some people that work in the bank and utilize their skills as well. They case the joint. They figure out how to rob the place. So they premeditate that robbery. All right? So they're trying. When people break into your home, how much premeditation do they do? And how much time do they spend in your home? My point being that the time spent in your home is very brief. They want to get in your home. They want to steal the things that are most valuable. The first place they'll probably go to is they will case your joint and probably figure out if you're married, if your wife wears nice jewelry, to figure out if your house is worth robbing. So if they see your wife wearing this nice jewelry and they see that you both leave at a certain time to both go to work, then they have cased your place out and they'll go to your bedroom, to your master bedrooms, the first place they'll go to steal the jewelry. Right? Now, if your guns were properly secured, they would probably see a vault, not knowing what's in the vault. They'd want to get into the vault, but what's their main priority? To get the stuff that's easier to steal and get the hell out of there. In what? 15, 20, 25 minutes? Because their neighbors, your neighbors, might be curious as to what that strange vehicle is doing outside the front of the home. And then the police are called because it's suspicious. Especially today, everyone's suspicious. So the number one priority of that criminal who's robbing your home is to get in and out of that house quick. It's not to spend a lot of time in there where they got like an hour and a half, where they're going to be able to figure out how to get into your gun vaults with what? Dynamite? Because you can't open it with a crowbar. You can't pull it out of the wall. How are they going to get into it? They got to figure out how to get into it. They got to spend time. More time than they've got. So my other point is, in this argument where everyone's saying, Dave, how dare you say that the people's home that was robbed, they're victims. They are not at all guilty for the theft of the guns out of their property. They're victims. They're not guilty of neglect. They're victims. 100% they're victims. They're not guilty of neglect at all. I say that they absolutely are. If your guns are not secured, where it's incredibly tough to get to them, especially multiple guns, then you know what? You haven't protected your home, your children, your wife, and the 3-mile community around you who are now subject to those guns that were stolen into your house being in the wrong hands. In fact, I got to say they were in the wrong hands to begin with because you didn't know how to protect the guns in your property to be robbed as easily as they were. Because, like I said, a criminal coming into your home, the first thing they should be able to do is be detected by one of these cameras. Now, even if the camera or this or a light camera, which are available anywhere, any electronic store has them, you can buy them on eBay. One thing that they do is they alert you. You get an alert on your phone that someone's in your home. So immediately you know someone's in your home. Potentially have an ability to capture video, a facial video of that person. Now, in all reality, if they're robbing your home, they probably have camouflaged themselves somewhere where you don't see the face attributes. But at least you got acknowledgement someone's in your home. You got, if you have multiple motion sensors in your home, like we have 6 of them, I can see you're in the master bedroom. I can see you're in the great room. I can see you're in the kitchen. I can see you're in the garage. I can see where you are moving around in the property. And by that time, I'm going to have called the police. Now, if the police come there quickly or not, I don't know. But they're going to come quick enough so that your TV might be stolen, your computer might be stolen, your laptop might be stolen. But if you secured your guns adequately, you know what's not going to be stolen? Your guns. Everything else is going to be eliminated from your home before the police get there. And the guy has escaped with your equipment. But he hasn't escaped with your guns because he got out of there within that half an hour or 20-minute increment where he couldn't get to your guns because they were properly secured. That's what I got to say about this topic. I've been doing crazy shows recently. I've been doing rude shows and gross shows. But when I see something on the internet or when I see something in my home community, which I want to make a point about, even if it makes me vastly unpopular, and there's people probably that are watching my show right now who not only smoke, and they blame the tobacco companies because the tobacco companies sold the product to them. So they hold the cigarette companies and tobacco companies guilty, and they defer all of their individual intelligence and responsibility to be manipulated by a company or a corporation selling tobacco. In my opinion, they were idiots for consuming the product to begin with. So they are as guilty as the cigarette companies. In fact, I think that they're 60% guilty. The tobacco companies are 40% guilty because just because there's a product out there doesn't mean it's safe. I mean, I was talking about vapor from the e-cigarettes. You know what? Vapor. And this kid that's 18 years old for 18 months was vaping. He was probably vaping he was probably chain smoking the e-cigarettes. He had to be chain smoking them. If you take anything to the extreme, you're going to get sick or die. I mean, even drinking water, there's people that get water intoxication. And you drink too much water, even though you're drinking it, you're not breathing it. So you're not in a pool drowning and you're breathing water into your lungs and you're dying because you breathe water into your lungs. You can drink water to the degree that you get water intoxicated and you die because there's too much water in your body. So if you take any product to an extensive, ridiculous amount, e-cigarettes, you're going to have a consequence. The 18-year-old guy now has lungs of a 70-year-old, and they say he's got the brain capability of a 2-year-old. Because the 18-year-old kid, I said, you can believe what he's on. Not only is he on e-cigarettes, he's on the internet, and I flashed this up earlier. All he had to do is Google contents of vape smoke. The vape smoke contents, again, I'll read them, are propylene, which I have no idea what that is. If I was going to consider buying an e-cigarette, by the way, I would Google and see what propylene glycol is. I would Google that and see what it is before I put it in my body. Glycerin, I would look and see what that is. Is it dangerous to put glycerin in my body? I think a nitroglycerin. Nicotine, we all know nicotine is an addictive chemical in cigarettes, and now it's in the e-products as well, the e-cigarettes. So do I want to buy something by a company that's going to be addictive? And then it's got tiny amounts of toxicants. Is it okay to take, when you smoke an e-cigarette, do you think to your mind, okay, well, it's got a tiny amount of toxicants. Isn't the goal here to have as few toxicants in your body as possible? If it's even possible at all with today's breathing in of toxicants just by breathing the air. Then it's got carcinogens. Am I not going to read? I don't know what that word is. Some people don't know what it is. If you're going to smoke an e-cigarette, don't you think you should Google and see what a carcinogen is? And when you Google it and you get on here, then you see it's the formulation of cancer. So doesn't that right there tell you, well, you know what, I better not buy this product. I better not smoke e-cigarettes. It's got heavy metals in it. Even if you're a guy that like heavy metal music, do you want heavy metals in your body? So do you want any of that? So it's a stupidity of people that take no individual personal responsibility, and they delegate that responsibility to who? In this case, the e-cigarette companies. So, but they didn't do the due diligence and figure out that it was a stupid thing to take in its entirety. Why would you do it? So that was the part one of today's topic. Part two was gun, what did I call it? Gun control. That was probably worded incorrectly. Gun ownership versus gun neglect is probably more accurate. Let me take a little sip here. Of something that is milk. How many toxins are in this? We don't know. So the second part of my topic tonight was guns. I said I'll repeat it for anyone that had missed it, and then I want to start reading some of the comments. And if anyone wants to call, I should be getting a lot of callers on this topic. I should be getting a lot of callers that hate me bringing up this topic and totally disagree with me. Because, again, the topic was gun ownership versus gun neglect. I'll say it again. A guy in our neighborhood within a 3-mile perimeter had his house broken into and multiple guns stolen out of his house to be used in what purpose? To be part of a collection in the guy's room, to say, oh, this is a cool gun, right? This is also a cool gun. Oh, look at this third one. This is a cool gun. I've got 5 others because, remember, it was multiple guns stolen. Are they stolen for what purpose? Probably to commit other crimes, because they were stolen by a guy committing a crime. He's probably going to use them to commit other crimes, or he's going to sell them to other people who can't get guns legally. They can get them only because they can only get them on the black market because they've committed a crime. They're going to buy guns to commit further crimes. Obviously, right? Obviously. It doesn't take rocket scientists to figure that out, right? See, we do have a call here. Let's see who this is. Hey, this is Dave Darren on the Dave Darren Show, talking about gun ownership and gun neglect. Do you have a point of view?
Yeah, first, Dave, I agree with what you said about guns. I agree totally. But, you know, you have to remember when the Constitution was written and the right to bear arms was put in to the Constitution, it was at a time where a homeowner had to own a gun because they couldn't pick up a phone and dial 911.
Yeah.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't thinking, I was delving into part of this topic, but you're bringing up the other part. So it's good. You're right. I agree with that, right? No 911 back then. So you had to protect your home, and it was kind of the wild, wild west. And so I agree with you. That's right. Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah. And it's just gotten out of control now. But I don't mind somebody owning a gun. But like you said, Dave, they've got to protect not themselves, but they've got to protect others from that gun. If somebody breaks into the house and is able to get your gun easily, then that's your fault.
Yes.
I mean, well, it's not your fault that they broke into your house, but your gun was, I don't know, lying in the closet, or on the closet floor, in the bureau, in the bedroom table. That's not a good place for a gun.
Now, but I did read on this app that I have, this Ring app I have, because like I said, it's a social media community for people that own these Ring devices. And I did read on there that one of the replies back to me was, and I'm assuming that it's accurate, but I can't validate that, but they said that the guy whose house was broken into, his guns were locked. Now, were they locked adequately enough? Was the vault secure enough, or was it a lock from a device that was purchased on eBay 35 years ago, which was not an adequate protection for multiple guns? Remember, it wasn't one gun, it was multiple guns. So now if you spend money on multiple guns, which means to me you should probably spend a couple $1,000 or even $1,000, doesn't that mean you should go out and buy a vault safe enough to keep your equipment safe from robbery. And like I said, the most robber is going to break into your home. His first goal is to get in and out of there within as quick a time as he can and steal the things that are most valuable. Your wife's jewelry, maybe a computer, maybe laptops. His number one goal is not to linger in that property, get in and out quickly. So if he was able to get in and out of that property quickly, but then walk away with your guns, your multiple guns, my interpretation of that is your guns were not properly secured. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If he could break into your home, get in and out of there quick enough to steal your guns were negligently protected. Therefore, you're somewhat responsible for not the break-in of your home, but you are definitely responsible for the guns being stolen out of your property.
I agree.
You agree?
I agree totally, Dave. And there's something else I want to say to you.
Okay.
About the smoking.
Yeah.
Now, I was 6 years old, and the paper boy was about 10. And I could whistle loudly, but I can't do it anymore.
Right. I remember that.
That kind of whistle, with no fingers, just your mouth.
Right.
So he said to me, Terry, I'll teach you how to inhale and smoke a cigarette if you teach me how to whistle. I said, yeah, that's good. Of course, I got the shit end of the deal, but I started smoking at 6 years old. I didn't know. Well, finally, now I'm 64 and I quit.
Okay.
I quit 3 months ago.
Oh, recently.
I have no words for any, but I did try the e-cigarettes. They didn't do that. I thought they were going to work. They didn't. I thought then my sister was vaping. And Jesus, all the smoke coming out of their mouth. I was like, oh, I got to try that. I didn't like it at all. It made me cough all the time. So thank God I didn't get into that.
Okay.
Because I've been reading the stories, horrible stories lately. And that's so sad.
Now let me ask you this question. So you started smoking at age 6, right?
Yeah.
Now maybe at age 6, did you have any thought in your mind, if you can remember this? Did you have any thought in your mind at the age of 6 that you're breathing smoke into your body? Did you have any thought process?
Of course not.
You didn't? Okay.
Of course not,
Okay.
Dave.
Okay, now, did your parents tell you anything at the age of 6? That they see kids in the neighborhood smoking at 9 years old, it's dangerous to smoke? They never told you?
When I was 14, they started talking about that. They thought, well, we better start telling Terry about smoking, because she's the one that will do it.
Okay, so now, at the age of 14, by the way, there were no labels on cigarette packs telling you that they were dangerous, and there were no commercials on TV telling you they were dangerous, and there's still commercials on TV advertising cigarettes and billboards up on top of roads advertising cigarettes. At the age of 14, there were still all these ads and no negative discussions about cigarettes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, yes. Now at the age of 14, you are 8 years older than the age of 6. So now, when you're 14 and your parents are telling you that it was dangerous, your parents were telling you cigarette smoke is dangerous.
Right.
Now, at that point, why did you keep on smoking? Because you knew it was dangerous.
I was addicted, Dave.
You were addicted, right? So you couldn't stop, right? Okay, but then...
And that's what the tobacco companies wanted.
Right. Now you switched to e-cigarettes. The reason is you thought the e-cigarettes would be a weaning away from smoking cigarettes and be a way to get completely off of cigarettes, including the e-cigarettes.
And this was only 2 years ago I started the e-cigarettes.
Right. And then when you took
I did it for about 3 months, I guess.
Okay, so you took
3 or 4 months.
Okay, so you took the e-cigarettes to stop the regular cigarettes, thinking that they were less dangerous, or do you think that the e-cigarettes...
I thought they were less dangerous because I was under the impression that the only chemical in them was nicotine, and that's what they are, chemicals.
Okay.
Nicotine, that's what I thought was in, and I figured I'm already addicted to nicotine, but at least I want some all of the other chemicals that come from a cigarette that will, cause my death.
Right, okay, so...
nicotine doesn't cause you to die of cancer.
Okay.
As far as they were saying, you know, because I was looking up these cigarettes and it didn't say that. So, you know, that it would cause cancer or anything. But thank God I didn't like them. That's all I can say, Dave, because I'm the type of person, if I'm going to do something, Jesus Christ can stand before me and say, listen, my daughter, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'll say, well, I like it. I really do. Leave me alone. I like it. Thank God I never got into drugs or drinking, because I would have been the biggest drug addict, biggest drinker in the world. You know, nobody could tell me anything.
Okay.
So thank God that I just, you know, smoking was my biggest evil, and it is an evil. It's terrible what it does to your body, I think. I'm lucky I don't have a lot of wrinkles from it, but I know people who look 10 times their age, for Christ's sake.
Oh, yeah.
I know a person who is 21 years old who looks at least 40. I know people who are 40, I'm 64, they look older than I do.
Yeah. Now here's...
And I was I smoked a pack a day.
Okay,
I
now...
think it's all in the genes.
Yep.
My mother died of lung cancer.
Yeah, and there are...
And my father couldn't breathe when I think he had emphysema.
Yeah, and there are people, obviously, who smoke a long time. Who do we think of? George Burns, right? Now, I don't know if he smokes cigarettes.
Yeah, well, he does the cigars. So I don't know. Are there chemicals in cigars that kill you?
I don't know. I really didn't look that up before the broadcast here.
Yeah, I don't know either, because I wondered that too.
Yeah.
Because he's always, and he inhales it.
Yeah.
Because I saw him on Johnny Carson, and I wanted to see if he was inhaling it. And he was inhaling it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just say to anybody out there, if you want to try something, go to pot. At least, I mean, I never smoked pot, but that's what I would say to my child. If they came to me and said, Mom, I'm going to start smoking, I'd say smoke pot.
All right, now, here's a question.
As far as I know, it's okay, isn't it?
As far as you know. Now, here's something else I would say. I don't even smoke pot. I don't smoke weed. Shocking.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay, but now here's a question for you. So, two questions for you. The first one I'm going to ask is, how about today's, think of someone younger today, maybe at the age of 15 or so. And before the age of 15, they never smoked cigarettes. But now at the age of 15, they start smoking cigarettes. Now, do you think that they should have the common sense and intellect to not smoke cigarettes at this point, where they still blame cigarette companies for still having the tobacco products out there available to that 15-year-old? Do you think that someone starting at the age of 15, you start at 6, at the age of 15, do you think that the stupid factor is played into it?
Well, I said there's no advertising.
Right.
All you hear about is cancer from cigarettes. I don't know if these kids hear what they're hearing. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it penetrates their brain when they hear a cancer stick. So cigarette is a cancer stick.
Right.
I don't know if they hear that. They just know it gives them satisfaction, and they think some of them may think it makes them look cool. It doesn't.
Yep. You know, sometimes, today's use of social media, I almost think if you walk down the street, you see everyone on a cell phone now, right? Everybody's on their cell phone constantly, correct?
Right.
Okay, in fact, in the morning when I walk our dog, there's one guy that walks 3 dogs, and he's on his cell phone, so he's neglecting everything around him. So in other words, if he sees a dog that's off a leash where he thinks his 3 dogs maybe should not be around a dog with no leash, so he's very distracted. There's distracted drivers. There's also distracted walkers. In fact, in New York City, there was an article about a girl that was, I think she was 14 years old. She was on FaceTime talking to her girlfriend about soccer practice, and she was hit She was hit by a car because she was crossing the street distracted, being on her cell phone. So today I almost think that cell phones right now are today's cool factor. People are just on cell phones because they're succumbed to peer pressure, where they think it looks cool to have the cell phone constantly near their ear. And if their cell phone is not constantly near their ear, they're not going to be the cool person in that high school because they don't have enough friends to talk to. So why would friends be friends with them?
I agree with you 100%. I don't have a cell phone, but you see people from teen years, even younger, up to grown-ups, walking down the street with their head down, texting on their phone or looking at their phone. No one looks up anymore and walks, They're all looking down. They look like a bunch of assholes.
Oh, yeah. Now, I got another one for you. I live in Arizona. Now, probably this is repeated across the entire country, but I know there's a school zone that I go, actually almost every school zone you go through. They've got multiple obstacles. They've got speed bumps. They've got serpentine streets, which they curve, and then you got to be careful how you negotiate those turns. They've got school buses. They've got crossing guards. They've got 15-mile-per-hour speed limit, and they have policemen there. That's 6 obstacles to protect the person crossing the street, the student crossing the street. When I went to school, my parents taught me I had to cross Broad Street in Philadelphia to get to school. Well, I was taught by my parents that any car that's going down the street is going to attempt to run your ass over. So be careful. Look both ways. Look both ways. Now we've got children that defer the responsibility of themselves onto that driver and onto everyone else to protect themselves while they're crossing the street on the cell phone. So we're teaching our kids that everyone else has to be responsible for them, when I was taught as a kid that I've got to be responsible because everyone else is irresponsible. It's reversed now, don't you think?
I do. Absolutely. Everything that our parents have daily as parents to teach your children, it's changed.
Uh-huh.
Everything has changed. And the kids, they're such spoiled little bastards. I don't like to say it, but they are spoiled little bastards.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We got another call here. I really appreciate you calling in. Thanks so much for calling. Let me take another call if you don't mind.
Okay. Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, Dave.
Bye-bye. Oh, it looks. Hello, this is Dave Barron. Are you on the line?
Yes, hi.
Hey
you
there.
hung up on me the other night.
Oh, that was an accident. I apologize. So what would you like to talk about? Hanging up on people is something I don't do intentionally, believe me. I'd rather have callers that I talk to. So do you have
I think you were hoping that I would call you back.
Oh, and did you call back or you didn't call back? Did you call back?
No, you were hoping that I did because I watched your show after that. You said, oh, I did hang up on her. Is that her? Is that her?
Huh. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what happened. But did you have a conversation tonight about my 2 topics? One was about gun ownership and gun irresponsibility, and the other one was about, what was the other one about? Cigarette smoke.
Yes, I hear you talking to my mother right now.
Oh, okay, there we go.
About gun control.
Okay, so did you want to make a comment?
When you come about gun control, there's always stand your ground. That they passed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
And
could you repeat that? You broke up a bit.
I watched the Zimmer case. With Trayvon Martin.
Okay.
And I feel that he was told not to get out of the car, and he did. And I feel that he is very trigger happy. I feel that he wanted to be a cop. All that boy had on him was Skittles.
Right. Okay.
To see parents, or a mother and father, sit there and have a child lay on the ground. I think he laid on the ground for 1 hour. To see him get off, I mean, they told him, do not get out of the car. And he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that's absolutely wrong. I felt that, you know, being a watch person or whatever he is, I mean, he's been nothing but a lunatic since he's got off.
You know, I haven't followed that.
You know, when it comes to guns, I mean, my father is, he was a lieutenant of the state police. And now he's with the FBI. Okay? I don't think my father ever reached for his gun or shot anybody. Okay? He was running the airport when 9/11 happened. And we didn't see him for 3 weeks. I mean, I just feel that this country is just falling apart.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to guns, I mean, shootings in school. I mean, I have a daughter that's 16 years old. She's going to be 17 next week. And I do get afraid because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if a kid's going to just have a bad day or been abused at home or psychologically crazy. You never know what these kids are going to do. It's very scary.
Yeah.
I mean, with Texas, with everything that's gone on, I mean, it's out of control.
Yeah.
And for Trump to say that, teachers need to be packing a gun, where is he coming from?
Yeah,
let me
interrupt you for a second. Let me bring up this topic. For instance, my wife watches a lot of different TV programs than I do. I tend to watch science fiction.
I watch a lot of Snapped. I'm out of my mind with that stuff. I mean, if you want to learn how to kill somebody, watch those shows.
Yeah, and let me say this. My wife watches the same shows you do, so I was actually going to bring that up. When she watches Snapped, and I watch it a couple times, you see people that are functioning sort of normally, and then something happens in their life, and it makes them the title of the program. They instantly snap. They're the most normal people until something occurs and they snap. So now we're giving. You know, for instance, I'm not really talking about gun control, but I am talking about this. You can have someone that owns a gun. They've legally owned it. They've been the best citizen in the entire neighborhood for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Then suddenly something in their life happens or changes. It's dramatic. It's devastating to them. And then they snap. Now we have everyone.
Right away.
Yeah, and everyone's got a gun. Now, I lived in Japan for a long time. And Japan,
I mean, how many
has guns.
My father always, my mother always used to say to him, we are padlocking our door. You are putting that gun in a box that's going to be locked. 5 kids cannot even see it. But you see all these kids around the world, and their parents are hunters or whatever. But, you know, you never know. I don't feel that, Dave, these kids should be exposed to these guns.
Well, they're not.
Hunting at 12 years old, or they just snap. I mean, Texas, they drive around in their trucks and they have they have a AK-47 or they have a rifle behind them. I mean, it's allowed. You don't know when they're going to snap.
Right.
I saw an episode the other day, and I was very disturbed by the episode. I watched a Dr. Phil show. I don't really like them, but then I started to stop watching them. Okay? He had a hard time dealing with what he had to tell those parents. He couldn't explain why this kid was how he is. You know, he's beating up his mother. He's putting a gun to her head. I mean, you're exposed to that. You ruin a child, even though they go in and out of rehabs or, another director of DFF, for 35 years. And I can't believe that these parents get away with this.
Yeah, well, Okay, let me interrupt you for a second, because here's something that's going to happen. Like I said, I got on my Ring app and I was talking about the guy who had guns stolen out of his house, and I said, not only is the victim, he's negligent in the ownership of his guns and not securing them. So I said he's also guilty for a degree, and if anyone gets shot with those guns, then he should have some kind of repercussion. The repercussion should be at least a minimum of not being allowed to own guns for a certain amount of time, because the guns that he owned got stolen and they're out of his possession in a house and didn't possess them and secure them properly. And everyone was all over my case. You wouldn't believe how many people were hostile. Now when you talk about the people that are hunters, I'll tell you this. The people that are hunters, whether it's stereotyping them or not, when the people are hunters and they've got a kid in the back seat and they've got a rifle in the seat next to them, and the child is 8 years old or 6 years old, the person watching my program tonight or the person listening to programs similar to my discussion right now are going to be up in arms, and people like you talking about a hunter who's got a child age 6, taking them out hunting, exposing them to guns at that young age. People are going to be hostile about you bringing that topic up. Trust me, they're going to be incensed that you're taking the hunting privilege of that child away.
All over the world, Dave.
Yep.
It's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
They're saying it's a mental health problem. It isn't. I'm sick and tired of hearing. Mm-hmm. This kid was he's 15 years old. He's on 25 different medications.
Wow, see that?
Nothing has to do with anything. I'm sick and tired of hearing that kids are going to their school and they're shooting everybody. He's by himself. He has 5 or 6 guns. I'm sick and tired of hearing mental health.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's what you learn from your parents.
Yeah.
You brought that child into the world, and you teach them right from wrong. You don't teach them nothing. You don't ignore the child. You're hitting the child.
Yeah.
Or they grew up with that type of environment. Or they're depressed. Or something like that. Or something sets them off in their mind.
Yeah. Now, what do you think?
All I'm trying to say is the world is going crazy.
What do you think?
A president that's now saying he wants all teachers to come in and with guns. He's not logical anyway. Something has to be wrong with him anyway.
Okay, well, I try not to do. I try not to do.
It's scary. Okay. My daughter would never think about doing drugs because it's not in front of her. Alcohol, because it's not in front of her. Guns, because it's not in front of her. They get exposed to that.
Okay.
They're gonna snap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me thank you for calling the show, because I do want to get to some of the comments, because we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I've already been off for an hour. But I very much appreciate you calling, giving your opinion, and having a discussion tonight. Let me get to some of the comments and maybe some of the callers. Okay. But thanks for calling, and please be sure to call again. Thanks so much for calling. I liked all your comments.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye. Okay, let me read some of the comments here. Lamont makes one that I'm curious to read, and I'm sure other people would like to hear it if you're not monitoring the chat. Lamont says, we're talking about hunters, and we're talking about hunters having children, maybe at a young age, maybe 6, 7 years old, and they're being brought on a hunt, and they've got the gun next to the father, and next to the father in the passenger seat is a 6 or 7-year-old child going out to the hunt and learning the use of the gun and the purposes of using the gun to kill an animal and eat the animal's meat for individual responsibility, how to live a life. I just watched, what was the name of that, with Castaway, right? And it was Tom Hanks, and he's learning to live on a deserted island. He's learning how to hunt. There were no animals there, but he was learning how to fish. He was learning all the survival skills needed so he could survive on this island for the amount of years he was there. So here we got Lamont teaching his children how the survival skills of learning how to kill an animal, probably clean the animal, and eat the animal, and using the skin for a means of warmth or protection or whatever the case may be. So Lamont says here, all my kids have taken hunter safety classes, so obviously Lamont is a hunter, which is mandatory before they can get a hunting permit. Okay, so you've introduced the child to a gun. Now, I don't know Lamont. I don't know Lamont's children. I don't know the conditions that they live in. Lamont seems to me to be a logical guy and a responsible gentleman who's called the show before. But there are people out there who obviously are very different. And, they'll be out there, and this is stereotyping again, but it's only picking a selection of a community that might have people that live like this. You see people that go on hunts, and they've got their children, and they're probably people, not probably, some of them are, that probably are out there, they're probably drinking, and their child's watching them drink. This is, again, going the worst scenario, the worst common denominator of human nature. And maybe they're abusive to some degree, yet the one-to-one relationship they have with their child, which is the better part of the relationship, is teaching the child how to survive, how to live with nature, how to live off nature as well. But the home environment of that child with the father is not the best. And isn't there a possibility that child, because the caller that called in a second ago just said that she's not comfortable with children being exposed to and having a relationship with a firearm at a very young age. Now, Lamont is teaching his child, I'm assuming at a very young age, to possess a firearm and using it in a hunt. So the other caller was discussing the fact that she wasn't comfortable with children being integrated into gun ownership at that early age. And what I say is there's situations where the child, due to the relationship of the family, or due to peer pressure, or just due to his experiences or whatever the case, at one point he may snap. Now I'm curious if Lamont secures the gun, I'm assuming he probably does, takes the child on the hunt. After the hunt's over, I'm assuming that Lamont secures the gun out of the reach of the child, or does the child have access to the guns at any point that he may want to possess that firearm? I'm guessing probably not, knowing Lamont is a logical human being that I believe he is. But just curious, there are a degree of people that will own a gun, and then they always say guns don't kill, people do. I've heard that before. But people are the ones that snap. The gun doesn't snap. The gun is not lying on a table, and due to a mechanical malfunction, the trigger isn't pressed via mechanical misfunction of that gun. So the gun hasn't snapped, but the person that owns the gun snaps. And it seems to be kind of more occurring recently, where the person snaps. And then he's brought to the court, and then it's a mental instability, and there's drugs involved, or mind-altering drugs. The caller said that there's all these people on all these medications, and then they blame the medications. It just seems, Lamont says, weapon safety is year-round. So Lamont, I'm curious, you can answer this on chat, or you can call in and answer this question. If you listen to the show from the beginning, you probably heard me describe that in my neighborhood, a 3-mile perimeter around where I live, someone's house was robbed. And not one, not two. Now, it wasn't said how many, but the word multiple guns was used. And like I said, if one gold gun was stolen, the wording of that sentence would have been a gun was stolen, the letter A indicating one. If a couple guns were stolen, two, then probably the article would have said a couple guns. Usually the word a few means three. There's a few people in my neighborhood. Usually it seems like it'd be three. When multiple seems to be more than three. Multiple to me is more than one, it's more than two, it's more than a few. Multiple guns were stolen from this person's house. Obviously, he's not responsible. He's a victim because his house was robbed. I hold him responsible for the theft of his guns being able to be stolen. And the reason I said that earlier, if Lamont missed it, is that robbers robbing a house, I'm only assuming this. It might not be factual. I haven't digested or understood this. But let me answer the call. Maybe this is Lamont. Let's see who this is. Hi, this is Dave Darren. You're on the Dave Darren Show. Who is calling, please?
Hey, it's Lamont.
Hey, Lamont. Okay, so did you get my story in the beginning? Did you hear the whole thing without me repeating it?
Yes, I did. That's why I tried to call you. Yeah, I do have multiple guns, but I'm close to 100.
Okay.
And most of mine have killed many people because I started collecting World War II rifles.
Okay.
So, they don't kill anyone anymore, but that's because there's a person that is responsible. But even since my children were very young, I had a glass case gun shell thingy, and I put a poster over it, and I had it hidden in my closet.
Uh-huh.
My kids used to play in that closet for years. They never knew I had any guns. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. And back in them days, there was a bunch of home invasion robberies. So my kid, my oldest, was about 6 or 7 or 8 at the time, and he's telling me, Dad, we need to get a gun. We need to get a gun. And I figured, he's about old enough. So I took the poster off, and his eyes just ballooned. It's like, Dad, you're trying to tell me these guns have always been here? And it's like, yeah, they sure have. But my safety thing back in them days is I've never had any bullets for those guns. If I wanted to go shooting, I would buy bullets, and I'd go shoot them all, and then come back home. Well, obviously, a glass is not going to stop anybody from breaking in and stealing my guns.
Right.
So I did get a metal gun case. My house was robbed one time. I had my guns hiding up in the attic. So they never went up into my attic. But yeah, they were in my closet or whatever. I did have a Cincy gun safe at that time. But with the crowbar, in about 20 minutes, they could have gotten into it. I actually drilled the lock out to lock the keys when I moved. But when I started collecting seriously and started buying all these World War II weapons, when I started buying handguns, when I started buying assault rifles, I firstly bought a giant gun safe that held 20, 30 guns.
Okay, now how easy is that gun safe that you have right now? How easily can that be broken into? Can it be broken into within 20 minutes, 30 minutes? No.
Dynamite, like you said, maybe, because this safe probably weighs 600-700 pounds, and it's probably 4 inches thick. I have 2 of them like that because when I started collecting more guns, I live in Idaho now, and there is hunting. And like I said a little bit earlier, all my kids went to a hunter safety class, not because so much they wanted to go hunting, but because it was a safety class. The most important thing is to teach, when you have a swimming pool, you teach a kid how to swim. Well, if you're going to have any kind of guns in the house, you need to teach the kid this is not a toy.
Okay.
Because so many children have been shot and killed playing with weapons.
Right. Okay, so let me get to my topic where I got on this Ring device and someone said that that someone's house was robbed. That house didn't have this.
I heard the story, and then like you said, the guy said that they were locked. Well, I wrote a message on your board. You can get a trigger lock so that you cannot pull the trigger. That's not going to stop somebody from taking the gun out of your house and taking it with them.
Right.
And I'm all for gun. I'm for people owning guns. Again, if you really read the Constitution, it wasn't to protect yourself from your neighbors. It's to protect yourself from the government.
Yeah, right.
And if anyone, if you want to look into it, that's it. We don't want to get into this, but Hitler, first thing he did, take all the weapons away from all the citizens and then they just walked all over them. How you got to protect yourself?
Right.
But anyway, no, you got to protect your guns. I mean, my gun safes probably cost me about the price of one decent weapon.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it holds like 20. You know.
Okay, so now, like I said, like when I started this program off, I said that people on this thread were outraged that I could say that person was not only a victim, but he was also guilty of neglect to have his firearm stolen. So I said he's guilty as well as being a victim, and everyone was outraged. You're not outraged at my comment.
Not at all. Not at all. Because it's pure ignorance to have a gun loaded. I don't know if they're loaded or not, but anywhere near somewhere where somebody can take them. And yeah, okay, you at your house you think is not going to be broken into. You know what? In our world, you can't rely on that.
Right.
You have to hide. And hiding them, where you got to hide them? Under the bed, in your closet? Luckily, like I said, I had mine hidden upstairs in the attic, so most people aren't going to go looking at people's attics when you're looking for valuables.
Right, absolutely.
But I was very lucky. I was very lucky that people, whoever it was, didn't know. And usually when somebody's house gets robbed, it's usually somebody that you know. Somebody knows when you're at work, when you're not at work, so that they who knows? It depends. Every robbery or every case is different. Was this guy negligent? Well, if you have multiple guns and you don't have a gun safe, it's hard for me to believe that he's not negligent in some way.
Wow.
You can't do that,
Yep.
I have Tom's guns, I have AKs, I have SKSs, I have ARs. I only got one of each. I mean, that's all you need. And you say, well, they're all different. Every gun is kind of different.
Yeah.
All my World War II rifles, I got one from every country of World War II. To me, it's history. Sure, they only hold 6 to 8 shots. I've probably only fired 1 or 2 of them because they are almost 80, 90 years old.
Yeah.
But to me, it is a collection. I'm not out shooting. I haven't been hunting since I used to go grouse hunting with a shotgun. One of my kids has actually got hunting and shot a deer. The other one doesn't want to. But recently, some guy was running from the cops and hopped in his backyard and hit some stuff in his yard. Came back later, knocked on his door, and said, "Look, I was running from the cops the other day. I hit some stuff. He actually climbed in my kid's boat. He goes, I hit some stuff in your boat. Can I come and get it?"
Wow.
Yeah. And he's like, and I bought one of those security systems, and he never hooked it up. But again, he goes, "Yeah, I heard you guys walking around in your house."
Yeah.
So here's somebody running from the cops, hiding in my kid's boat that's in his driveway. And so now he told me, he goes, I want to start carrying a gun. Yeah. And I do have a concealed weapons permit, by the way. Up in Idaho, we can get them. Down in California, you can. Mm-hmm. But no, we can. We've done all the safety things we can do. And we handle our guns correctly. When we're done with them, we clean them. We put them away. And we have a blast. We go out shooting every now and then at a legal shooting range. We don't just go out in the desert and break glass and not pick up after ourselves. I mean, you got to be responsible. Anybody who's responsible can have a fun time with guns or anything else, pretty much. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you become unresponsible, and like you said, if you snap, then yeah, you're not responsible anymore. So that part scares even me. And like, but they don't want to do anything about mental health. They want to blame the guns. And I've been teasing people; they're blaming the wrong things. Guns don't kill people. Bullets kill people. Okay. So if you really want to, the gun, we can do something over the head with the gun. No, the bullets are what's going at, Mach 1 speed or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So a whole other dimension of crazy people go after the bullets now.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Okay, one more thing. I did start smoking when I was about 9 years old. I was in LA, cool thing to do. Going through 2 packs a day. I was giving one away to all my older brothers and friends that didn't have a job. And I had a paper route. I don't know if you remember delivering papers on a bicycle, but I had the largest paper route in Southern California in Los Angeles. And when I was about 13, I quit because just trying to ride a bicycle up and down the hills over Domino Beach. I think I told you that before. It was like crazy. So, but luckily, I got tired of paying for 2 packs of cigarettes. And back in them days, it was like a whole 40 cents a pack. And nowadays, they're like $5 a pack. Times 365, that's a little over $18,000 a year.
Right.
So, we're all these 10 to 16-year-olds getting $18,000 a year, and all these poor people that are on welfare or whatever, but yet they can still afford to buy a pack of cigarettes a day or they can buy a new car every year, their choice.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyway, Dave, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I love your show, and keep it up.
Hey, thanks, man. I'll talk to you later, Lamont. Thanks for the call. It was a great call.
All right, bye-bye.
Cheers, bye. Okay, that's the end of the show. By the way, Lamont was talking about having a paper route. When I was a kid, I also had the largest paper route in Philadelphia, selling the Philadelphia Daily News. So a little similarity between myself and Lamont also. It's funny because when you're a kid, I was an entrepreneur back then, because what happened is the Philadelphia Daily News was a product you could purchase at a newsstand, or I think they even had the little distribution boxes where you could put, I remember the Philadelphia Daily News was a dime, 10 cents for the paper. So you put a dime in the box, you pull the handle, and you get one paper. I think they had that back then. No technology. It was all mechanical, of course. So they probably did have it. But then they came to our school. I went to a school, and they came for the elementary school students and asked them if they wanted to have a paper route. But you had to go door to door, knock on people's doors, and ask them if they wanted to buy the Philadelphia Daily News. So all the kids, there were like 10 of them, and I remember I got like 10 customers. And then what happened is everyone that had 10 customers, no one thought it was worthwhile to have 10 customers. So they wanted to get out of the paper route business, right? So they came to me and they said, "Do you want my 10 customers?" And I wanted their 10 customers. So then I went from 10 to 20. Then another kid quit because he only had 10. They gave it to me. I had 30. I built it up without having to spend all of the effort. I was just creative about it. Not that I was lazy. I would have gone out and tried to get 11, 12, 13. But I was getting these customers much, much easier because everyone else didn't value the 10 that they had. And I stuck with the initial 10. And I built it up to 100. So I think at one point I had 150 customers, just me. And I was delivering on a bicycle as well. Fortunately, the Philadelphia Daily News was a much thinner paper than the Philadelphia Bulletin and Inquirer, so I could put them, and I was able to throw. I actually played baseball. I was one of the few people that I actually pitched in Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia because we had an interleague championship, high school versus high school. I actually got to pitch in Veterans Stadium, home of the Philadelphia Phillies. Now I got slammed because I was a lefty, and lefties. It's funny, left-handed pitchers are usually great, but a lot of left-handed pitchers lack control. I was one of those guys that lacked control. I could throw the ball at amazing speed. From my young age, I was throwing, I think, like 85, 90 miles an hour. I think that was my speed. I think I timed it. I forget. But I was throwing it at an enormous speed, but my control lacked. So I actually got killed in Veterans Stadium, unfortunately. But I was one of the kids that used to throw the newspaper, just like Lamont evidently did on a bicycle. I was throwing the newspapers. One of the things about Philadelphia, too, is I grew up in a rough area of Philly, and we used to get sample newspapers to give the neighbors of the customers we had. And Philadelphia neighbors or Philadelphia row homes. I lived in a row home section of Philadelphia. They have what's called a storm door, and then you got the door. So when it rained, you would put the paper behind the storm door in front of the wooden door that was the security to the home, right? So I remember that one of my neighbors who I delivered a paper to as a sample, his house was blown up along with the neighbor next to him, because there's a row home, so they're connected. He was blown up and killed. Now, fortunately, I didn't deliver the newspaper to him, but even if I did, it would have just been under the storm door and not the main door. But Philadelphia is a violent place to live where I grew up. That's why I grew up to be street smart. And so just a little thing specifically for Lamont, I thought it would maybe be interesting. He had 144 papers. It was funny, too, because when I built it up to like 144 or 150 papers, there's one other guy in our neighborhood who delivered the Philadelphia Inquirer, the morning paper. You had to get it out to people's doorsteps before they woke up in the morning. Before they had a cup of coffee in their hand, they had to have the newspaper ready to unfold while they drank their first sip of coffee. That was the thing with the Philadelphia Inquirer. I did the Daily News, which was a late afternoon delivery, so I had to have it out by like 5 o'clock. So it was a lot easier because I didn't have to wake up at like 3:30 in the morning to deliver the Philadelphia Inquirer in the dead of winter when it's dark and 9 degrees out. And he used to deliver the papers because his were heavier. He couldn't use a bicycle. He actually had a shopping cart that he stole, obviously, from it was called AMP at the time. So he was delivering in a shopping cart. When he went on vacation, I was the only guy that would take his route because he had like 130, 140 big, thick newspapers. Especially the Sunday was a disaster. Sunday Inquirer was it was like 4 times thicker than the weekly one. And I had that little thin paper. So it was easy. When I went on vacation, he took my 150 papers, which were a breeze to deliver, versus his Philadelphia Inquirer. So I always gave that guy credit. Lewis, I'm not going to mention his last name, but Lewis was a tremendous entrepreneur. I was as well. We were the only two paper boys who were able to exchange paper routes when we went on vacation. That was a little personal note for Lamont. And that's all I've got to talk about today. We talked about it. And I'm gonna put the show out on Facebook. I'll probably cut the personal section out, and I'll rerun it on Facebook Live tomorrow. And I am going to boost this to see if we can get like the 1,000 or 2,000 viewers I used to get for this show before Facebook threw me into, you get 2,000 viewers, Dave, if you pay. So I've got to be an entrepreneur to get my radio show out there. Except I'm not trying to make the show a professional format. So I'm not trying to have an entrepreneurship with doing the radio show, but I will for this one show and see if it gets some more interest. That's all I got. I will see you guys on Thursday. And that's all I got for tonight. Thanks for joining. Check you guys out at a later date. Ciao.
Do you know the Dave Darren Show? He used to be on terrestrial radio, but he got fired.
Here comes the boss fella now.
Dave Darren.